The bell had never rung at noon. Morning bells belonged to routine, summoning men to fields and shops, pulling the town awake whether it wanted to be or not. Evening bells softened the day, reminding everyone that work could be set down and grudges postponed until tomorrow. Sunday bells wrapped the town in the illusion of forgiveness. But noon was different. Noon was the hour when the sun pinned everything in place, when shadows shrank and secrets had nowhere to stretch. Noon was supposed to be quiet. So when the iron bell cracked the air at exactly 12, the sound didn't just ring, it struck. The first pull landed like a blow to the chest. Conversations died mid-word. The second pull rolled across the square, rattling glass and nerves alike. By the third, even the wind seemed to hesitate, as if unsure whether it should keep moving or stop and listen. Don't do it, someone breathed, the words barely more than dust. Caleb Rourke stood beneath the bell tower, boots braced against warped planks polished smooth by decades of nervous pacing. The rope burned against his palm, rough and familiar, like the reins he'd held since boyhood. His hat was off, crushed in his left hand, the brim bent where his fingers clenched too tight. He hadn't shaved that morning. He hadn't slept. His eyes were red, but not from tears, those had been spent years ago. Below him, the town gathered without meaning to. People drifted in at first, drawn by sound and instinct, then stopped short when they saw who stood above them. Merchants abandoned ledgers, ink drying mid-sentence. The blacksmith leaned on his hammer, arm frozen halfway through a swing. A woman paused with her child half lifted into her arms, unsure whether to flee or stay. Horses stamped and snorted, sensing the tension before any human named it. The sheriff pushed through the crowd, boots scuffing hard against the dirt. His coat hung open, hand hovering near his holster out of habit more than threat. He looked up at Caleb, jaw set, eyes searching the rancher's face for a crack, a hint of doubt. "Caleb," he called, keeping his voice low, "careful. You don't want to do this." Caleb looked down slowly. The sheriff saw what everyone else did then, the calm that came after a long decision, the kind that left no room for bargaining. "You ring that bell like this," the sheriff went on, "you can't pretend it's an accident. You can't walk it back." Caleb nodded once. "I know." A ripple moved through the crowd, unease spreading like spilled oil. Someone near the front pressed their hands together as if in prayer. Another shook his head, lips moving silently, already practicing denial. "Please," a woman said, her voice breaking through the hush. She was wrapped in a faded shawl despite the heat, eyes fixed on Caleb as though he were a ledge she might fall from. "Please don't." Caleb's gaze traveled over the people below him. He knew their faces better than his own reflection. He had shared meals with them, laughed with them, trusted them. He saw men who had once clapped him on the back after a good cattle drive, men who now wouldn't meet his eyes. He saw women who had accepted his wife's help, then crossed the street when the rumors started. He saw the church elders standing stiffly together, hands folded, expressions arranged into practiced concern. Don't do it," the sheriff said again, softer this time. "You'll tear this town apart." Caleb swallowed. For a moment, something flickered across his face, regret, perhaps, or memory. Then it was gone. "It's already torn," he said. "You just nailed boards over the cracks and called it whole." He pulled the rope again. The bell answered with a furious roar, sound surging out across rooftops and fields, echoing off distant hills. Windows shuttered. Birds exploded from eaves. A horse screamed and reared, nearly throwing its rider. The noise pressed against ears and chests, refusing to be ignored. When the echo finally thinned, the square felt wrong, too open, too exposed. "What does this mean?" someone shouted. "Why now?" another voice demanded. The sheriff stepped forward. "Caleb, climb down," he said, urgency creeping in. "We can talk this through." Caleb leaned over the railing, forearms resting on splintered wood. His voice carried easily, steady as the land he worked. "You've had years to talk," he said. "You talked yourselves into comfort while other people paid the price." A man near the back shoved his way forward. "You're stirring trouble," he yelled. "You always thought you were better than us." Caleb's mouth tightened. "I thought we were better than this." He reached into his coat. The sheriff's hand snapped to his gun, muscles tensing, but Caleb drew out only a bundle of papers, thick and worn, bound with twine darkened by sweat and age. He held it up high. "Names," Caleb said. "Dates. Agreements signed in rooms with locked doors. Deals made while you told yourselves it was necessary." A murmur rose, swelling into something sharp and frightened. The preacher stepped forward now, face flushed, collar damp with sweat. "This isn't the way," he said, lifting his hands. "You're inviting chaos." "No," Caleb replied. "I'm ending the pretending." He untied the twine. The papers scattered, lifted by a stray breeze, fluttering down into the square. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then recognition struck like lightning. A man lunged for a page, snatching it up and shoving it into his coat. Another dropped to his knees, trying to gather sheets before others could read. Gasps broke out. Shouts followed. "That's not what it looks like. You don't understand. You said you'd keep quiet." The crowd surged, pressing inward, voices stacking on top of one another until words lost meaning. Someone hurled a stone. It clanged off the tower, missing Caleb by inches. Another followed, then another. "Stop," the sheriff shouted, pushing himself between the mob and the steps. "All of you, stop." Caleb didn't move. He straightened, hands empty now, and looked down at the chaos he'd unleashed. There was no triumph in his expression, only a weary resolve. Men argued, then shoved. Old friends turned on each other with startling speed, accusations spilling out that had waited years for daylight. A woman slapped another, screaming about lies and stolen promises. A shopkeeper tried to burn a page with shaking hands, only to have it slapped away by someone shouting his name in disbelief. Above it all, the bell tower cast a long, narrow shadow across the square, dividing the crowd in two. People stepped into it without realizing, faces changing as they crossed from sun into darkness. The sheriff climbed the steps toward Caleb, boots thudding hard. Up close, he saw the lines etched deep around the rancher's eyes, the cost of the choice he'd made. "You've made enemies you can't outrun," the sheriff said. "You know that." Caleb nodded. "I've been running my whole life." Below them, the town continued to fracture, the sound a raw, living thing. The neat stories people had told themselves peeled away, leaving something jagged and honest behind. Caleb looked out one last time, breathing in dust and sunlight and the sharp tang of truth. He didn't know what would come next, only that it had needed to come. The bell was silent now, but its echo lingered, hanging over the town like a question no one could escape. He had been warned. He had done it anyway. And as the town lost its mind beneath him, the past finally lost its grip.